Fred, ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a special meeting of the Guam Public Utilities Commission. It's November 5th, 6:33 p.m. All commissioners will be present this evening. We're just waiting on one more, but he'll be arriving a little. And I think we'll get started. The reason we're here this evening is we have a problem in our regular office building that the elevators don't work. We just felt it'd be better to have it in an alternate location for the time being. I don't think everybody wants to walk up 7 flights of stairs this evening. So in the future, we will probably have a different location. We'll decide that later, but we'll keep you all posted as to where our PUC. Everybody get a chance to vote today? We're not holding anybody up from Election Day, are we? I see a lot of stickers out there, so I think we're good. First order of business is approval of minutes 24 and 26, 2024. Can I have a motion?
Subject to correction.
Second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item is GWA docket number 2410, petition to approve GWA's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity hydraulic modeling services contract with Brown and Caldwell. That has been tabled. I think we're not quite ready for that one at this point.
Well, that would be correct, Mr. Chair.
Or Anthony. So the next item is GWA docket number 2501, amended petition to waive contract review protocols for all partial CD procurements and contracts. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is GWA's petition to waive the contract review protocol for all partial consent decree projects, contracts, and procurements. The partial consent decree was, I believe, already approved by the judge of the district court as a binding lawful order upon GWA. And it requires GWA over the next 10 years to build about $330 million worth of projects. These projects, if you've had a chance to look at the consent decree, are very complex. They involve gravity mains, pump stations, sewer projects, an extensive number of projects which will continue over the next 10 years. And GWA in its petition feels that to have the PUC have to review each of the contracts would be too time consuming, would delay their projects under the consent decree. And I think there's a lot of justification for that position. If you've looked at the consent decree, it's a complex document. It requires GWA to furnish budgets for the partial consent decree, for the cost of each of these projects, and really is going to involve, I think, hundreds of procurements probably over the 10-year period. If GWA doesn't meet the deadlines in the consent decree, there are severe penalties that could result. Now, I would say that this is not unprecedented at all for GWA to request a waiver of the consent decree projects. That's exactly what was done on the prior consent decree projects. There was a docket and an order by the PUC back in roughly 2005. It could have been earlier. But it said that all consent decree projects would not require approval by GWA through the contract review protocol. So that seems to make a lot of sense. Here I did request the assistance of Georgetown Consulting Group to also examine this petition and give an opinion as to whether Georgetown felt it was justified. And they did. They wrote back. I attached the Georgetown report to my ALJ report. Both myself and Georgetown agree that the consent decree projects, contracts, and procurements should be exempt from the contract review protocol. If they weren't exempt, again, you understand the process. For each contract over $1 million, they would have to file with the PUC a petition for approval, and have to go through that long process. And it's just not time efficient and cost efficient with these projects. However, both the ALJ and Georgetown believe that there still has to be some reporting requirement. $300 million is a lot of money, and the PUC has to exercise its due diligence to make sure that the costs are spent wisely as to what the costs are, what payments are made for. They have to know, the PUC must know about the projects, what are the timelines, what are the milestones, what are the budgets, etc. So both myself and the ALJ report and Georgetown have a second point. Although the contract review protocol should be waived, there should be reporting requirements that GWA has to fulfill to make sure that the PUC can justify the projects and assess the prudence and reasonableness of each of the projects. So a part of the ALJ recommendation, and it's included in the proposed order, is that there would be a quarterly reporting requirement by GWA. File reports like they have in the past on other types of contracts. Both GPA and GWA file quarterly reports on various matters. So here the reports would have to address the matters set forth in Georgetown's report, which were 6 items: compliance with regulations, clear deadlines and milestones, budget management, stakeholder communication, risk management, and a program manager. There was only one small area with, not a disagreement, but I guess a qualification on the ALJ's part as to the requirement of a program manager. Georgetown had recommended that GWA hire a qualified program manager. I know there's a lot of expertise at GWA, and I think it can certainly come up with an individual to perform that function. So I just altered that one to suggest that either hire if they want to, or designate a current employee who could fill that function. So that's the recommendation that we both made, to waive the partial CD projects from the contract review protocol, and that the commission order the reporting that we've set forth. The order is very simple and straightforward. It basically accomplishes those 2 goals: waiving compliance with the contract review protocol for the partial CD procurements, and also requiring detailed reports quarterly in compliance with the recommendation of Georgetown. And those reports would be due to the PUC on or before December 31, March 31st, June 30, and September 30 of each succeeding.
Thank you, Fred. Any comments from GWA on this docket?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. Record, Teresa Rojas, counsel for GWA. Also present this evening is our acting general manager, Mr. Thomas Cruz. But on this specific docket, I just have a few points I'd like to share with the commission. So the partial consent decree was actually filed on January 31st this year, and it was lodged by the U.S. Department of Justice unsigned, and that was for the court's consideration and for a public comment period to take place. There was a comment period, and there was one public comment received in response. And so after some time in August of this year, Specifically, August 9th, the court judge, Chief Judge Francis Sidenko Gatewood, entered the partial CD and entered an order making the partial CD. So that's important because from the effective date of the partial CD, all of our timelines within the partial CD triggered. If you take a look at the exhibit that we filed with the petition, I apologize, it was a little dense, but we wanted to be sure that the commission understood really all of the requirements that are coming down the pike for GWA in the next 10 years. And I know we did give a presentation to the commission, providing more detail about all of the projects that were required. So following the August 9th effective date, we did have a kickoff with US EPA. And I'm mentioning this to share that in that kickoff, there was a decision that GWA would meet bi-weekly with US EPA to go over the compliance requirements, to discuss the most immediate deadlines, to discuss projects that would be put out for procurement, to discuss timelines, and just to keep on top of the requirements of the partial CD. That is GWA's earnest effort to ensure, that we do our best to keep up with the timelines, that we meet those timeframes, and that we really stay away from all the stipulated penalties. So I'm thankful for the ALJ's recommendation and the positive recommendation from Georgetown, which does recommend for the commissioners to approve waiving the protocol here. There is only one point I'd like to raise. I know that the recommendation from the ALJ and Georgetown is for GWA to provide quarterly reporting. I am requesting if the commissioners can consider instead a reporting every twice a year in January and July. And I'm asking for that instead of the quarterly reporting because that's what the partial CD requires. So in January and July of each year, which will begin in 2025, GWA will provide a written progress report to US EPA, which will include a narrative and a time frame of all of the projects and where we stand, whether or not they've begun or not. And it will also include project costs, any change orders, the contractor names, the contract amounts, and I think that will cover the concerns that both Georgetown and the ALJ have requested to the PUC in the quarterly reporting. And then it would just help GWA be relieved of some prescriptive requirements if the commission would consider kind of the reporting in January and July. Yeah. Biannual. Thank you. And so with that, I have no other comments, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Yes.
Can you hear me? So switching to the biannual and the 6 requirements, does GW have any issues with meeting these 6 issues from Georgetown? Or the 6 reporting requirements from Georgetown?
No, there was no issue. All of that should be met in our biannual reporting requirement. Stakeholder communication, I can also remark, Commissioner Montanola, that the consent decree actually requires that we put on our website all of the procurements that will be required, or I guess all of the procurements that will be advertised for partial CD projects. So we're working to, of course, ensure that we have that on our website in a specific place so it can all be viewed in one place. The partial CD also requires, I guess, the use of social media. So before a procurement begins, there's a requirement for us to put out a notice that it's, going to be considered and reviewed for approval before the CCU. So, I look at the 6 requirements, and I don't think we have a problem. Sorry, and for the program manager, I thank the ALJ for the adjustment. Again, our Assistant General Manager of Compliance and Safety heads, I guess, the compliance with the partial CD along with the Senior Regulatory Analyst, and both of those are in-house employees with GW. And they're the same team that handled, I guess, oversight and reporting to US EPA for our nearly finished stipulated order.
Fred, do you have any comments regarding the biannual rather than quarterly?
I think that's a matter for the PUC to decide. I can understand, of course, the 300 million worth of projects, so we probably that could be satisfied by a
Just a minor word change. I think it's semi-annual for biannual.
Oh.
Another year. I think it's semi-annual. And just one other question, if I may, but will all the actual projects still be approved by the CCU?
Yes. So if the project cost or contract will exceed $1 million, it will still have to obtain CCU approval. And thank you, semi-annual. I think that's why I was hesitant to say biannual.
Are all the projects, they're already pre-budgeted, correct, or pre-approved with the budget amounts?
For this most immediate 5-year period, but the partial CD spans a 10-year time frame. But for the first 5 years, yes.
Right. It's already pre-approved.
It's been
for that.
budgeted and
Okay.
estimated, yes.
So you had said that, you had mentioned that you'll be meeting bi-weekly with the USEP. So, and that's throughout this whole period of 5 years to make sure that you're hitting all the deadlines, timelines. So if there were any delay, then you would get it right at the get-go there and be able to negotiate with USPA extension, but would you have to go back to court to be able to have the matter reviewed by the judge? This is in accordance with the partial stipulation.
So the meeting every 2 weeks, yes, has the goal with ensuring that GWA stays on task. And if there is a prediction that we, will not be able to meet the specific requirements, the partial CD outlines different routes that we can take to try and modify the deadline. But there are some deadlines called compliance milestones that maybe only the court can grant a deadline for. But it's really specific to and within the discretion of US EPA, really. If they're not convinced, and if the specific, I guess, routes that we have available to modify specific deadlines do not apply, yes, we will have to go back to the court to request an extension. And that was part of the major sticking point, really, in our negotiation with SCPA. How many times would we need to go back to court if so? I mean, and that is what we do today with the stipulated order. We have just the construction of our reservoirs to be completed. For a large deadline like that, we have had to go back to the court to request an extension. And it's up to the court to grant or deny our request. So again, so it's not for every deadline, but only in specific circumstances.
Is there
Under the contract review protocol, of course, there's the 20% that the utility has to go over the. But here, no, these contracts won't be subject to that. Still, in the course of annual rate case reviews, UC will have an opportunity. Budgets for those programs, see whether they've gone beyond the budgeted amount. So there still will be an opportunity for input, and that will be every year, of course, under the true-up procedure.
Motion to approve GWA docket 2501. Aye.
The motion carries unanimous. Next item is GWA docket number 2502, petition for GWA to procure design build for supervisory control and data acquisition system, phases 1 and 2. We have a legal counsel report and a proposed order. Anthony?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So if this docket, GWA is requesting the PUC to authorize GWA to issue a solicitation to procure design build services for phases 1 and 2 of its SCADA system project. And GWA currently does not have a SCADA central station. It currently operates a diverse array of SCADA hardware and software solutions that are localized at some, but not all of its facilities. And the majority of GWA's remote sites, there's approximately 420 of them, these are their water wells, springs, reservoirs, booster pump stations, pressure regulating valves, master meters, so on and so forth, lack SCADA equipment. And phase 1 of this project would be the construction of a SCADA control center. Phase 2 would be the integration of the locations with an existing site level SCADA center into the SCADA control center. And in this case, GWA is required to obtain the PUC's authorization to issue a solicitation because the estimated $4.8 million cost of this solicitation will exceed $1 million review threshold. Additionally, GWA is planning on using bond funds or some of their bond funds for this project. And GWA is required basically to PUC's authorization every time it uses bond funds. So GWA has to obtain the PUC's approval of this solicitation prior to issuing it. I looked at the budget in GWA's current 5-year capital improvement program, and that's for the period fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 2029. And its estimate is $36 million for what they call EMC, or electronic monitoring and control projects for that period. The SCADA system project would be a type of electronic monitoring control system, that budget. So basically, GWA's estimated $4.8 million design and build services for phase 1 and 2 is really only 13% of that allocated cost for that 5-year period. Additionally, this contract would be for a 5-year term, 3 years initial, with 2 1-year options to renew, and assuming essentially that the all 3 years of the initial term and all options were exercised. Basically, the first year, GWA had allocated out of its EMC budget about basically if we take the $4.8 million cost, we divide it equally amongst that 5-year term, that's about $970,000 or so per year. And that would only be 15% of the $6 million allocated for this fiscal year. It would only be 8% of the $12 million allocated for fiscal year 2026, 14% of the $7 million allocated for fiscal year 2027, 25% of the $3 million allocated for fiscal year 2028, and 16% of the $6 million allocated for fiscal 2029. So in each of these years, GWA still has a very healthy amount budgeted for any additional SCADA projects that, or EMC projects that they might want to do. I also found that Phase 1 and 2 of the project is prudent. This will improve GWA's operational efficiency, reliability, and resiliency of both GWA's water and wastewater systems. And additionally, transitioning from 5 different SCADA systems that it currently operates into a single standardized SCADA system will enhance GWA's staff training and expertise, simplify its software licensing, reduce development costs, and maximize the synergies of GWA's equipment, and also go far in resolving or preventing and reducing GWA's cyber security threats. The solicitation is also necessary. Basically, after Typhoon Mawar, the FEMA consultant assisting GWA had actually recommended that GWA standardize its SCADA system, hardware and software across all its facilities. GWA has historically been facing increasing challenges managing these 5 different brands of SCADA systems across multiple facilities. And basically, this would go far in training, maintaining, as well as spare parts management if it standardizes its SCADA. I've included a proposed order approving or authorizing GWA to issue this solicitation. Thank you, subject to your questions.
Thank you, Anthony. Any comments from GWA?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record again, Teresa Rojas on behalf of GWA. This docket is technical. So for, and to our benefit, the acting GM is also the assistant GM of operations who is present this evening. And I'd just like to ask our acting GM, Mr. Thomas Cruz, if he has some additional comments.
Half day, Chairman. To be frank, Attorney, he spelled it out. It is just going to help GWA from the operations standpoint be more efficient in the O&M. But it takes, I could say this takes money to kind of get to that point. And ultimately, we want to be like GPA's SCADA system. So I don't have anything more to add other than from the operations standpoint, it would really help.
Two questions. One, where will be the central facility?
Oh, currently, right now, we have a room at our Fididian office where we have operators, technical operators that are called systems control dispatchers. Right? They're not technically SCADA personnel, but this particular location is currently where we send information in, the plans, if you will, to expand. My understanding is that we would expand at this particular point and at our Fididian office. Where?
Because it says design build, that's why I was curious, where?
Right, well, design build can also be, you know, like we might have an existing facility and we're designing the equipment that might go in. Design build may also include the connections to all the facilities that are out there, right, to be able to communicate back in. So my understanding, I'm not in the engineering side, I'm in the operations side, we're the beneficiaries, but the current location of where our dispatch, systems control dispatchers are is at least a starting point at Fididian.
Then the next question is, if you're upgrading all of your SCADA, what's the estimated cost of all of that electronic? Or is that included in this?
Commissioner Brooks, basically, it's only phase 1 and phase 2. There are 4 phases to this project. The additional phases do consist of,
Because once we approve this, what's the total package going to be, is really my question.
they didn't provide that data. They only provided, the 4.8 is just for phase 1 and phase 2, and that is it. It's design build for the SCADA control center itself, plus integrating the existing SCADA. Phase 3, when they get there, that would be a little more pronounced probably, because it would be the assessment, design, and construction and installation of SCADA equipment at drinking water facilities. Then phase 4 is the assessment, design, and construction and or installation of SCADA equipment at wastewater facilities. So these are getting the remaining 420 remote locations, all integrated into this data system, which would probably be, in my estimate, perhaps a little more costly than what you see here. Thank you.
That's what I was leading up to. What's the total package? But they don't have an idea.
I know that in their budget for EMC for the next 5 years, the total amount is $36 million for those 5 years. Well, it's there's a variety of projects that could be EMC or electronic monitoring and control. So I imagine that basically if there's any additional cost, it would come from that part of the budget, the $36 million. But here, like I said, this is just not even a quarter of what they budgeted. So there's still a lot of room in their budget if they want to add phase 3, phase 4 later on. But they didn't provide an estimated cost.
So just regarding the SCADA systems, and like you said, they mentioned that there was 4 or 5 different systems out there, and you're trying to consolidate into one. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
Well, it's more like the brand of systems, like at our treatment plants.
Right. So each SCADA system that you have currently is different brands, different vendors.
Brands, yes.
Is there any reason why you didn't choose the same one along the way?
All through the year, well, I've been with GWA 18 years, and in the water system and the wastewater system, there's some similarities, but there's differences, and the industry, certain brands focus on, we'll say, on the water side. And
Is the upgrade that you're going through for all 5, are you familiar with that brand?
I think that's what the design build would kind of work towards.
So you're starting from scratch?
No, not necessarily. I'm saying like the designers, right, would look at which
software
Yeah.
vendors to use?
correct.
What timeline are you looking for phase 1 and 2?
I'm not able to answer that question, Commissioner. But I understand that the need to procure SCADA has been, it's a necessity for us, right? We need our facilities to talk to each other, and then we need all those facilities to talk to us, so we can, adequately respond and report. So I would think that this procurement, once approved, will probably be underway and be advertised immediately. I would think within the next couple months. That's my best guess. No more than 3 months.
And Commissioner McDonald, it is for they are soliciting for a 5-year contract term, so approximately a 5-year period once it's awarded, assuming there's no protest.
Once it's awarded, build up.
Well, I'm going to say, since it's a design build, the build part would, I guess, run concurrently when certain components or phases are completed on the design side. And then, so in my mind, it'll almost, for phase 1 and 2, like Attorney Camacho saying, it'll, within 5 years, there'd be design and construction kind of happening at the same time.
I understand the commissioners are aware, but this is just a petition requesting for approval to procure. So once, of course, responses come in, the request for proposal, then of course we'll have a better idea, we can better be able to answer those questions.
I'm here to talk about SCADA. Does the GPA use the SCADA system as well? Or is it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So, I'm just looking at cost and what we're gonna spend here. Is there, is there a central, control system with that for doing the GPA?
I'm going to say yes, but they can elaborate.
Jennifer's going to talk.
I'm just thinking the system that we had, that GWA is taking the lead on, right? Is it the financial system that we had talked about? Right, and I'm just wondering, is that a possibility as well as they're approaching into this design build? That those systems, that control system, benefit both as far as cost analysis and so not integrate, but GPA can do it, GWA can do it, I'm just saying.
I believe that was something we tried to do, but there are requirements for the system to work, so communications, that actually speaks to each other. So GPA was kind of in the lead already, at the RTUs that allows us to communicate with certain equipment, whether it's the substation or the power plant. So we were able to set up our system and get that going. There is capability of certain systems to do water and power. And it's really you're just kind of monitoring what the status is of certain things and keeping controls and monitoring depending on how you set it up. So the SCADA systems are really allowing you to do the monitoring and talking to what's out there.
So maybe the two agencies can talk to each other to see how the best one fits.
So there's, yeah, I mean, I think we looked at something that was that from certain systems similar, so we can manage the cost. We're already using our system, so we can, and we've been using it for years now, so and getting our schedules that.
So then this is your segue into what you're looking at, and then come together so that
There may be some.
just want to make sure that thought is there, that the agency, with the experience already happening, they're trying to get 5 different, an array of different SCADA systems and bring it into one concentrated central area to start looking at what's going on with the 420 miles per hour.
For your review at this point.
I know, it's unfortunate, but that's something to consider as this is moving forward.
You've been here in the GPA that we have a team building which has exactly which actually addresses the remote transfer. So that's kind of something we're looking at.
Both the two agencies to work together, see where we can get some costs in for the benefit of the workers.
Thanks, Rowena. Any other comments from the commission?
Since this is the petition to move forward, I move to approve GWA docket 2502.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion. Okay. Yep.
Before GWA is excused, I know we don't have any other matters on the agenda. I just wanted to briefly remark on the Quartet case and the Supreme Court oral arguments, which were just had on October 23rd. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I wanted to thank the commission for its entry of an amicus brief or a friend of the court brief, truly on behalf of the ratepayers, but in support of GWA's petition for the Supreme Court to immediately review two of the Superior Court's orders. And so on October 23rd, the commission was invited to the Supreme Court to hear arguments on jurisdiction and whether or not the petition for interlocutory review would be ripe or is ripe for the Supreme Court's review. So basically the issue, of course, rests on certificates of title and ownership of the land where our Northern District wastewater treatment plant sits. And, you know, we've introduced the narrative that supports GWA meeting the specific requirements of an interlocutory petition, which include facts that support, you know, that a review would support the early termination of the case, that the review would clarify issues that would clarify issues of importance that would really hit home or hit to the heart of the issue. And I just wanted to provide a status, and I think what we're being met with in that petition, now the Supreme Court is going to kind of, they've taken under advisement and they're going to take some time to decide whether or not they have jurisdiction. So for us, the concern seems to be, you know, that the Supreme Court doesn't believe that there's an issue, that there's an issue in GWA waiting for the matter to continue in the Superior Court, conclude there, and then come up. But I wanted to remark about that case before the PUC because I believe that the Supreme Court may be thinking that the true issue is whether or not GWA has lost its ability to operate the water treatment plant. And the justices mentioned, you know, well, we don't see any immediate harm coming to GWA, although Cortec has asked for the use, enjoyment, and occupancy of that land without, you know, without GWA. The Supreme Court is stating that they don't believe that, you know, there's any real harm. But I wanted to thank the PUC because I think the PUC's amicus brief has really brought to light that a lot of the harm is waiting for a decision to be made on a potential liability that could cost GWA and Guam's ratepayers over $220 million. And what the Supreme Court, I guess, hasn't maybe considered yet is that there is a harm. There's a harm in waiting, right? There's a harm in waiting for a decision to be made on a judgment, again, which could trigger maybe an expedited and an emergency review by this body, which would require GWA to come before the PUC, you know, to request increased rates in order to pay for that judgment. And we do believe, of course, that there absolutely is an issue, that there is a harm in waiting for the decision, and we're, again, just waiting for the Supreme Court, so we're hopeful, you know, that their review would consider all of those harms to include the wait to ratepayers, and the wait for the PUC to know for sure whether or not GWA is going to be facing a $220 million judgment. So I wanted to extend our thank you, and I didn't want to wait until the holidays were upon us because I'm afraid there might not be a quorum. And I didn't want to delay GWA's thank you to the PUC, the ALJ, and the Commission for the support and for the amicus brief that it's filed to the Supreme Court, requesting and urging the Supreme Court to take review of our petition. So that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. Next item is GPA docket number 2422, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve the construction of the new transmission and distribution. We have an ALJ report, proposed order. Joe Fett, I believe this is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this matter concerns, Mr. Chair, GPA's request for approval of a invitation to bid, which relates to the construction of a new transmission and distribution facility. And the GPA in its petition indicated that due to the age of the buildings, damage from typhoons, and degradation of the steel frame buildings there at the site, which is located in Dedido, GPA determined that its current transmission and distribution buildings needed to be demolished and replaced. And so in line with this effort, GPA contracted RIM Architects to design a new concrete typhoon-proof facility, which would house GPA's T&D administration and operations, offices, along with a new disaster recovery office, which would hold its power system control center and information technology systems. RIM Architects then provided GPA with its design for the new facility back in 2021, which at the time RIM Architects estimated the cost for this new facility would be around $14.8 million. And so in July of this year, the CCU approved the construction of the new facility, also approving an estimated cost of about $17.2 million, which GPA submits based on the new market data would be the cost for labor and materials today. In addition to responding to an RFI that I issued, GPA also met with me last month to provide an overview concerning the construction project, the scopes of work, as well as an estimate of the timelines that they're requesting approval for. And according to GPA, this new facility will be constructed over the footprint of the existing buildings in GPA's Dedido property, which is adjacent to its Dedido warehouse, as well as the Dedido combustion turbine plant, if anyone's, the commission's aware of that location. The construction will include a 2-story typhoon-proof concrete building, which again will accommodate the administration offices, underground, overhead, substation, meter relay, and operations offices. And as mentioned earlier, again, it would include the disaster recovery office. In support of the request for PUC approval of the procurement, GPA has provided the draft invitation to bid to me, as well as the draft contract, which consists of basically the construction of the new 2-story administration building, which of course will necessitate the demolition of the old structures that are currently there, including a building of a new parking lot. The draft procurement documents also included the clearing and demolition work, again paving and striping of the parking lot, utilities, foundation, superstructure, interior walls, doors, windows, frames, floor and ceiling finishes, a fire suppression system, emergency generator, building management system, just to name a few of the things that are going to be required in order to complete the construction of this facility. And according to GPA, Mr. Chairman, the projected source of this funding will be from their CIP project funds. And as indicated in GPA docket 2426, which I believe should be before the commission this week, GPA has already budgeted about $5 million in fiscal year 2025 for this project. And so based on the documentation that GPA has provided to me, including the information briefing that they presented to me last month. The existing T&D buildings are definitely a bit run down, and during a typhoon would likely be unsafe for GPA's personnel. And since, according to GPA, there is currently no backup system outside of GPA's FADIAN offices, this new facility will allow for GPA to house a new disaster recovery office for its IT systems. And so GPA, based on this record, should be permitted to replace its old steel framed and I believe tin roof, Marianne, is it tin roof building? Buildings into one concrete building that would provide a more lasting and safe facility for the T&D operations. And so based on this record, Mr. Chairman, I recommended approval of the procurement for the invitation to bid related to the construction work for the new T&D facility in Merida.
Thank you, Joe Fett. Any comments from GPA?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Zofet clearly laid it out for us. Case in point, the last storm, our T&D personnel didn't want to stay at the T&D building. They all came down, all the crews afterwards came down to Padian and stayed. So the whole island is 98% concrete pole. Our T&D building is still a Butler building. So no doubt it's time to take care of it. And actually, we started in 2021 getting the design, but as COVID came, and other issues under recovery, we didn't have the cash and the time to get it done. So yes, it's direly needed, Mr. Chair. The grid will always be here and very, very important. So this building has to be centralized, like really concretized, and then secondly, start placing EV charging stations, because that's the way to the future. And in addition to that, it's really going to lay it out a lot better so that the fleet can come in there. So it's not changing the warehouse or the T&D or the substation. This is all for all the other parts. No? So the grid will be here. We maintain that, and so the team really needs a good place to do this.
Where's it located again?
Right behind that, the BMW up in Dedito, right behind the Lucky Strike.
And when you do the concrete structure, it'll be in the same location?
Yes, but now the building is kind of in the middle, and all the parking is around it. So the building now will be towards the fence line, and all the other parking and activities will make it more efficient.
The operations that they do there, is that duplicated anywhere else, like your Fidian, or
No,
one location?
But the one thing that we need and critically need is to put a disaster recovery office, and that is a second dispatch control center. In case anything ever happened to Fidian, we can go right up to the editor and operate it. And again, understanding the threats that are before us, understanding that you never know that something will, it's too critical for us to be able, we must have a way to be able to control the system.
That would be an entirely separate location.
Right up the same with the T&D building area. So there'll be a separate power system, control system, just like you see though in the DN. So we'll have both. And yes, GWA and ourselves will work together. They too will have to have a disaster recovery office. No? So we'll work it in together.
Concrete for category 5 star.
Yes, it must be.
I did a tour in one of the power plants in Florida, I think it was. They have the category 5 looping. also had like get them up and running before.
Right, and, if this is it for us. You know, I mean, Boulder Building it survived over this, I guess in the, been in the 80s, that was built, or the 70s.
I'm glad you guys are moving forward.
So is this, the 17 million, is it primarily just for the building? Or, will any equipment be needed to be upgraded?
That includes furnishing everything. Everything that we will need is in the 17 million. Including the disaster recovery, the location for the SCADA, all this, what you call it, the support, SCADA support team, will be included.
Approximately how many people will be there? I'm just curious.
Well, in T&D, there's about 100 personnel, but they're not all, they're all out in the field, no? So I'm not quite sure how many, but maybe about 40, maybe 30, 40.
More or less there all the time.
So administration in and out. The relay personnel, that's the office space. They come in at the end of the day, all of that. So we're gonna fund it all of our. And we're not going out for a bond right now. We don't really know yet what we're gonna do, and when's the best thing to do about funding some of our other CIP needs, no? Including the point that we are asking for grants and everything to help us, no? So at this point, we're just going to take it out of our annual CIP because it's a critical component for us. No?
Years?
Yes, for the next 3. It's already in the, like Jeff had mentioned, it's already in the 2025.
You know?
So is this going to contain a second control center or the main control center?
Yes.
So there's one at the beginning and then
This will be the second disaster recovery. The main one will still be at the end, but if anything happened at the end, then we move there and operate the system from. No, I'm not quite sure. We probably don't give them cost estimates. I think we let them bid. We do have a budget estimate and all of that, no? Yeah, we tell them what, there's a design drawings and everything, and they build it to that specification. So that they will get. And maybe, it probably includes, of course, the specifications that go with it. Everything is ready to roll. Right. Yeah. So what we did was for the purpose of trying to figure out what it will cost us. That's why we estimated up to 18 million. So as far as the bill of costs and everything that's not relevant, it's up to them. You know, it does have the bill of material. It's up to them now to get the best price that they could for it and then bid. Well, they can, hopefully at least they're below the estimate or at the estimate and not come in higher, then have to come to the PUC again.
2021.
Yeah, and as we all know, construction costs have really increased. No? Hopefully we can manage with that. We're going to try our best.
Else? A motion?
docket 2422.
Second? Seconds, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimous. Next item is GPA docket number 2424, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve the purchase of the water system diesel generators. I believe this item is tabled for the time being. Is that correct, Joe Fett?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next item is GPA docket number 2425, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve Phase 4 Renewable Energy Acquisition Award to KEPCO, WP Samsung C&T Consortium, and Cortex Solar Energy LLC for up to 192 megawatts of renewable energy capacity. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred? Mr. Pangilinan. Mr. Pangilinan is recused from this docket. Go ahead, Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Let me give you a little background first. I'm sure you all remember Phase 4. Mr. Benavente had come before the Commission, had approved the procurement, and the bid went out, and there have been 5 bidders selected to provide solar plant projects for Phase 4. In this present petition, initially it was filed requesting approval of 2 contracts with KEPCO and Cortec. However, at a later time, GPA will certainly come back to request approval of the other 3 bidders that have submitted bids. But the request of GPA here has changed a bit. When the petition was first filed, it was asking for approval of the KEPCO contract and the Cortec contracts, which together would represent 192 megawatts. At the time the petition was filed, there were no contracts submitted for review. I had asked for contract, and Wallachuk provided me with a draft contract for KEPCO. However, I was advised that Cortec has been removed from the petition. So at the present time, really the only contract that would be before you is the KEPCO contract. Before I get into specifics, I'd like to give a little background, kind of where the Commission's been. And there's no doubt the idea of Phase 4 and these solar contracts is something that the Commission is well aware of and has approved in theory and principle on many occasions. This goes back to the integrated resource plan that GPA proposed back in 2012. An element of that was all the solar plans that GPA has brought over the years, Phase 2, 3, 4, also Phase 5 and 6, I believe. So the Commission did approve an IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan, recognizing that Phase 4 would be a part of it. And more recently, the matter was before you when you approved the procurement for the Phase 4 projects. So my point is that there's a history here. The Commission has always been open and receptive, and I think still is open and receptive to the idea and the reality of these solar contracts. In this case, the KEPCO contract alone would cost ratepayers $1.12 billion over 25 years. I believe with the Cortec contract it'd be about 1.6 billion. So there's no doubt that this has to come before the Commission for contract review. So also that the issue is payment. You'll recall that over the history of the PUC, it was developed that solar power for the plants, for the cost, for the payments that GPA makes to the solar providers is funded through LEAC. So in other words, there's not revenue funds at stake here. but all of these solar contracts will be funded for the next 25 years by adding amounts into the LEAC. So there is a direct cost. In my report, I think I gave you a detailed project description of what the contract involves here. I'm not going to go over that again, but I would point out that at the present time, we don't really have a final contract. It's still being revised and developed. The contract that was initially filed with the commission actually has been subsequently revised. And as of yesterday, Ms. Wallachuk filed a new revised 122-page contract for KEPCO. I have to admit, I haven't had the time since yesterday to review that contract. But the point is that there is right now no final agreement between GPA and KEPCO. What we got when I asked for a contract was a draft, which has not been approved by either party, actually. The contract from yesterday was revised and updated. I think GPA is certainly making progress towards a final contract. But we don't have that yet. And under the contract review protocol, if you look at the protocol itself, it says the commission approves contracts. And the law, 12 GCA 12105 says that it reviews contract agreements that could increase rates. So what really the commission is supposed to have before it makes a final decision is a contract that the parties have agreed with. And in this case, there's still a number of steps to be undertaken. There's review and approval by the Attorney General. Wallachuk informed yesterday. So that hasn't been done yet. There's no commercial operation date. There are a number of other essential elements in the contract that are still missing. KEPCO has to agree to undertake the interconnection agreement and make sure that the interconnection of this plant into the system is done by its expense. So my point is, I feel that without a final contract, and that would be at least a representation by GPA, this contract has basically been approved by the parties. That's the point at which it should come to the PUC for approval, when we really know what all the terms and conditions are. Because otherwise, there could be changes until the Attorney General makes the final ruling. So that's a real concern, and as I will explain, I can't really advise tonight that you should approve a final contract. But there are other actions perhaps you can take so that we can move towards that position of the final contract. We did review the form in the procurement. At that time, GPA had a draft contract, and it seemed that the form was appropriate. I had found that there were provisions in that contract affecting the ratepayers, and the commission agreed and approved the procurement. But the contract has now become more fleshed out. It's moving towards finality, but it's just not quite there yet. I want to also say that I believe there are certainly justifications for this contract, as the PUC has found on previous occasions. And those include that the CCU has pointed out there's going to be a lot of load growth over the next 5 to 10 years. That's a reason for these solar contracts to provide more generation capacity. It will provide savings to the ratepayers ultimately, because the cost of fuel in an estimated amount of 800,000 barrels will be reduced when these solar plants come online. So that's a great advantage. And another point is the renewable energy standards. Legislature did set the standards of 50% renewable by 2035 and 100% by 2045. So GPA is committed to that, and without these phase 4 renewables, it won't be able to achieve those goals. And also, it still needs to be developed about the interconnection cost, because these contracts all say that once a study is done, and the study will be done at the cost of the bidders, if the bidder thinks it's too expensive, they can pull out. They can just unilaterally decide that they're not going to proceed ahead with the contract. So there's some road to proceed here. Just a final point on contract cost. I did request the assistance of Mariana's consulting group, Mr. Venzel, B. Venzel, and Cora Martinez, and they have provided a report on the cost impact. And the cost impact is a little of a complicated issue, but both GPA and MCG seem to conclude that with the development of the solar projects, that the LEAC costs will overall go down substantially. That is from what they are now. So we're at 26 cents per kilowatt hour now, and it's expected to go way down maybe to 15 cents per kilowatt hour, something in that area. And both reports, our consultants did not have a concern about the rate impact side of it, although there's no doubt that the solar plants actually, well, it depends. It depends on the cost of fuel. If the cost is really low, it may increase the costs. But long term, reducing the 800,000 barrels should reduce the LEAC cost if the solar plants are built. So that's not where my concerns lie. But as far as the commission action, what I've recommended in the proposed order is that you basically authorize GPA to proceed ahead, give a conditional approval to continue working on the contract towards a final contract. You could approve the bid award, because all the bidders were awarded. With TEPCO, we know it has a history, successful accomplishment of 60 megawatts of solar power. So there's a history there that we justify. But my only concern about a final contract approval at this point, as I've said, is that we don't have a final contract. And I don't know how you feel about it, because I don't believe the commissioners, other than maybe what you've seen this evening, if you looked at the 122-page contract, are comfortable that you know what its provisions are and what its impact is. So I'm suggesting that before final approval, GPA has to, under the contract review protocol, come back with a final contract, where it can say, TEPCO agrees to this, GPA agrees to this, and we want the commission to approve the contract. Here, you can't do that right now until there is a final contract. So, in my proposed order, I suggested a way to handle this, where GPA would continue to work on the final contract. When they had a finalized contract, they could submit it back to the commission. I could review that, and as I've done on some occasions, certify to you that there's nothing new really, or no additional cost impact on the ratepayers. That would constitute approval. If you're not comfortable with that, I would understand that, and you could just bring back the final contract to the PUC for approval. Either way you want to do it is fine with me. I was trying to figure out a way I could expedite contract approval, because there are reasons GPA has given for a need to expedite it. One is cost. Contractors agree to cost in their bids. The longer a delay there is until approval, costs can go up. So I'm sympathetic. But My basic proposal then in the order was that you would give a conditional approval to the board, authorize GPA to continue ahead with negotiating, not grant final approval. Requiring that it be brought back.
Thank you, Fred. Comments, John?
Mr. Chair, I'll try to begin somewhere, maybe from the foundation of this whole thing, and then bring it to a request for your consideration. First of all, it's been almost 2 years for this process. We went out December 2022. It's almost December 2024, month and a half away. And it's very complicated because, again, this is the second round of renewable, so there's less areas, prime areas for them to look, more complicated areas. Secondly, pricing have changed throughout this period. We went out for 100% shifting with batteries. Word coming back was, you're going to be about 20 cents a kilowatt hour. It's just not, there's just no way that it could be done for that. So again, because we really need to get moving on renewables and also find a hedge against escalating fuel prices, most especially diesel because it's a refined product. We set a cap of 17.9 cents. And why 17.9 cents? A renewable battery is going to take about 5 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So you take that out of the 18 cents, now you're looking at renewable with just the solar panel, with just a little bit of battery, around the 12 cents a kilowatt hour. There's no way we're going to get the 8.5 that we did before, but it's still that became reasonable. So we're buying actually 4 batteries that bring it up to this amount. No? And again, I'll explain as Fred has said, the batteries are very important to us because the load growth that the military is they want to be over 100 megawatts by 2033. That's their plan. That's what they're moving forward with. When you consider, of course, the island will grow with that because there's support requirements. So we're thinking somewhere even just a 4% growth, 3 to 4% growth. It's a huge growth. We're not going to meet it with just the capacity we have, even with the Ukudu. And that's why we weren't ready at this point to say, the original plan was with Ukudu power plant, we were going to retire some of the other units. We can't today because the huge condition change of the military buildup. Huge condition change of a lot of data centers are already putting roots on the island. More and more are coming to talk to us. No? So it's kind of a happy problem, I would like to say, because the more revenues coming in from base rate, the more we can help others, the more we can spend for the system. No? But we don't want to get into another load shedding blue period, right? So therefore, batteries is our way because the batteries can be used to catch the energy in the daytime, no? The cheaper energy in the daytime, shift it and shave the peak. So therefore, with the phase 4, 330 megawatts of capacity, that included 150 megawatts of batteries. That allows for 100-some megawatts of new additional load. One may say, well, they're not proven yet. Oh, we're proving it today. It's working for us. We're shifting, even Talapofo, we're shifting for 4 hours with the limited battery that we have. So again, yes, we can have contingency in terms of its reliability, but batteries are there, reliable, and I believe will supply that load moving forward. So 330 megawatts came in. Most of them are around the 7.89 or 17.9 cents, the cap. anybody above that was going to be considered. We're also in an environment of what they call PROTEST. No? I don't like to say the word out very often, but it's always been it's really caused havoc for all of us. So when we look at this, we say, well, what does this do for us? This 330 megawatts. It provides us so that we can be, our estimate, about 56% renewables by 2028. No? So I say, well, if it takes 2 years to get to this point, what makes me think that I'm going to get a better pricing or anything like that down the road, see? And I get to avoid protesting and said, well, everyone can have a place at the table as long as they meet the system impact study and be able to tie into the system, integrate seamlessly, and to not increase their price. Anyone increasing their price, I'm sorry, that just starts, start where everybody wants to increase their price. It's time sensitive because there are some that have options out there or buying properties, and they need to get going, no? Because again, the price was open in December of last year, so now it's already 10 months old. So this is why I'm before you, and the first two that we had ready in terms of system impact study were Cortec and KEPCO. That's why the 192 megawatts. Of course, like Fred said, in the original bid specs, we have a guideline for a contract. And so that is the guideline that's given to everyone. So they've been working on that, and I believe we have one now ready with KEPCO. And Cortec is not far behind in selling the next one. That's why I'm looking perhaps for yourself, if you consider, like Fred was mentioning, awarding the 192 megawatts, still subject to the final review of the contract provision by the LOJ, as you know, has, like to say, have been done in the past. No, nothing will change from the price of the liabilities to GPA. The interconnection is actually just putting together, making sure the things that were in the system impact study are there to make that happen, and ensure that. It's taking a long time too, because there's 11 different projects and therefore 11 different system impact study. They all have to be put together to work. And so we have been really pushing to try and get to this point and get this before you. So yes, our intention, we initially letter of intent to award everything subject to the PUC and CCU and PUC. I like to call this phase 4A, which is 192 megawatts, bringing together 97 megawatts of battery, which could be completed by around the end of 2027. The remaining 140 megawatts, if they all come through with what is required, we'll add another 70 megawatts of batteries, and that will be completed in the earlier mid-2028. But again, we won't come to you until it's ready. The form of the contract, the KEPCO is put together, we have given to Cortec. We're working that out to finish that so that we'll basically come to really something that would probably be acceptable to everyone moving along. But again, the time is of the essence. We really don't want to lose these projects. Beg your indulgences for not having everything really as prepared. However, if you will consider providing the authority to the LHA, making sure that the contracts are acceptable and reviewed and all of that. And of course, our team has been reviewing this, and this is part of the back and forth, because there are some proponents that are used to contracting now with us, like the KEPCO, and there are some others that have never contracted for solar PV, and those are the ones that we've been grinding with. And again, we don't give ground on something that is would pass any liability of their contract to GPA, and two, increasing the price of the project. Of course, it has to be complied with the laws of Guam, of which Marian has made sure that those are conditions that the Attorney General has had an input into. So that's where we're at today, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I know it's already November. We move this even towards the end of the year, early next year, we might lose some of these contracts. Really, it would be, what does it do for us? TEPCO and the Ukudo will come on the line 2025, and that will drop our consumption of oil by 890,000 barrels. Phase 4, the oil awarded will drop it another 800,000 barrels. So that's a total of about 1.7 million reduction from the 3 million today. So only 1.3 million barrels of oil is left that will do this thing on us. So yes, it's all part of the LEAG, but it's a steady cost of LEAG. So it goes towards a goal of affordable energy on a sustained basis, because so you say Benavente affordable energy, and then you go away, and then next year goes up to the ceiling because oil is going to $200 a barrel, and we're back to where we just came from, right? This will show and even confirmed by the team and Fred that really the cost will start to get stay down, and it's getting cheaper than the LEAG that we have today. At some point, we won't go back to the 31 cents a kilowatt hour. I think the highest I've seen will be like a 23 cents kilowatt hour at $175 $200 a barrel oil. So it's a good deal. And I ask your dioceses to perhaps that in some form, or that form, approve the at least phase 4A, and subject to. Sorry, Fred, I know that's a lot of work, but I think we'll try and work with you and try to keep more consistent with the contracts to everyone. We have given Corteg the KEPCO contract, and we're hoping they'll come in soon, and we're close, from my understanding, so we can get that to you for your review.
John, I think Fred has got this particular order written up, not for the full 192 KEPCO and Cortec, but just KEPCO. At this point, we
No contract for Cortec.
Is it your feeling, John, that if we do some sort of conditional approval, at least for the KEPCO, that helps green light them and they can proceed, start buying materials for this contract?
Well,
lower cost.
where I was hoping for is really the two of them together, because Cortec is actually 17.3, which is lower than the KEPCO. So,
what's the particular advantage of us doing a conditional approval prior to having any all on the contract? I mean,
no, the contract is like almost a boilerplate. It's almost the it's really the major conditions that are there are the pricing. Are they able to interconnect to the system at that same pricing? And then the contract. So pricing is better. It's 17.3 in KEPCO. Two, their location is right next to the power plant area. Right. They just tie in at 34.5 into the Harmon substation. So those are the two major conditions. Everything else is just the finalization of the contract. If we give the contract, for Cortec, that will be just like KEPCO.
So
There's
is
no
it-
change no change. We won't change the estimates of LEAC, the analysis that were made. There was one question here, Fred, whether we considered all of phase 4 in the numbers that we sent in. Yes, in 2027 was the phase 4A, Cortec and KEPCO, and then the 2028 number, it included the rest of the thing. So what happens there is as the renewables come in, we back off Ukudu for a period, and then that gives us capacity for growth.
So is it your feeling, John, that if the commission waits until a more finalized or final contract, that we might miss some of this pricing and things could change over the next few months?
Yes, that's my concern. At least these are the two significant part of this bid. There are some others that are still working out some things that have to be, a little more complicated in the transmission environment. They have to figure out whether they can afford to do it. Some others that are maybe looking at land issues or other things that they still have to work out. So those are, I don't see anyone, those are issues that are really of their issues to resolve. These two are kind of just us ready to move them forward. So I hate to, I don't want to give them an opportunity to say, hey, change our mind, we can't do it anymore. So these are the only two that I'm looking for at this point. The others most likely will come in. It's already almost Christmas, so most likely sometime in the beginning of next year. But these are we could really use 97 megawatts of batteries. And so if we award the KEPCO and the Cortec, that will bring us up to about 40% by 2027.
I'm going to ask Fred to comment.
I'd like to read a portion of my brief that I gave, the ALJ report that I've given you. On or about September 25, 2024, the ALJ requested that GPA provide copies to him of both contracts, KEPCO and Cortec. On October 11, GPA provided the ALJ with the KEPCO contract for his review. On the same day, acting GPA counsel, who I believe was Rojas at that point, advised the ALJ that the Cortec contract was still under negotiation. Therefore, quote, GPA is requesting to move forward with the PUC's review and approval for the award to KEPCO alone. So they withdrew. That's why I didn't review the Cortec contract, because there was no contract, and GPA told me through their lawyer that they weren't requesting approval. So I'll be honest with you, I don't see that the commission could possibly, with due diligence and review, approve a KEPCO contract, or rather a Cortec contract, when there is no contract. No contract has been submitted to the PUC, and it hasn't been reviewed by the ALJ because we were asked not to review it. So I think the only contract, even conceivably before you, is the 132 KEPCO megawatts. The 192 includes Cortec, but let's talk about contract review. What is contract review? It requires that contracts be, Commissioner Pangilinan, you pointed this out. Where's the contract? What is the contract? Because that's actually what you have to review under the contract review protocol. What does the law define a contract as? An agreement between the parties. But here, neither with Cortec nor KEPCO do we have any final contract or contract that's been agreed to by either GPA or KEPCO or Cortec. You need a final contract because that's what the contract review requires, and that's also what the law requires. As I mentioned in 12 GCA 12105, you're supposed to review contract agreements that could increase rates. But to have a contract, for you to be able to assess the project, you need a final contract that you can review and have before you. Otherwise, you don't know what the terms of that contract are going to be when it's finalized. So my only complaint about the way GPA is proceeding, they've been submitting documents to us that aren't final contracts. They're just stages of a contract, partial suggestions, but there's no final contract agreement. And with Cortec, and Mr. Benavente says, well, they're looking at the same form, but we don't have anything before us as a commission which enables us to evaluate the Cortec contract at all. And the KEPCO contract, still subject to AG review and approval. We're still getting revised forms of the contract, but we don't have anything approaching final agreement. And I think if you water that part of the contract review protocol down, you might as well forget contract review. Because if you don't have the contract, you don't know what's being done. You're going to be operating in the dark without any kind of a final agreement.
Contract
Yes.
right now, or is it just, I mean, this is more of a...
It's to approve the contract.
We're looking at a conditional approval.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is, as I said, I completely agree with Mr. Benavente. It's a necessary project.
Correct, because of the price
It
increases.
should proceed ahead as quickly as possible, but I don't think you can approve the contract because you don't have a final
Correct.
contract,
Yeah.
and you have no Cortec contract.
But we could do a conditional approval.
Yes, I've recommended that the award, I guess I don't have an objection to approving the awards, but the contracts, that's different.
Right.
I mean, they're going to have to...
They come back for the
What
contract.
GPA should really do, and I know it takes more time, but this is the process. They submit final contracts to
Right.
us for review, not drafts, not rough drafts, not concepts of what the contract might be, but the final contract. And I would suggest in the future that for these other bidders, don't submit it to the PUC unless you have a final contract. Because otherwise, the commission can't approve it. It's not final. Guam law, by the way, I cited that in my report also. Contract requires agreement between the parties. Now, I understand they may not want to sign the contract before the PUC. Although there used to be a provision in contracts that they would not be final until approved by the PUC. So they could do that. They could do that, have a similar provision, sign the contract. Or if they come to us and they say, you know, the parties have basically agreed to this, then the PUC can say, okay, we have a final contract that we can review. And it's proper. Then you're exercising your duties under the contract review.
I can assure you the Commissioner, the balance, the rest of them will have a contract before. This is again, the major part of the whole bid, and again, time is of the essence, and that's why I've given them deadlines, and they've been working to try and get it together. And I believe we have the...
If we were to consider a conditional approval, would you be okay if we put a time frame on that?
Well,
3 weeks, for example, to have the contract before us?
if an award condition on the LHS review and us putting in, is that what you were talking about?
I understand the reason for the conditional approval, to make sure that we lock in that price point. It's already 10 months in. Yes, we'd like to try to lock that in, or at least signal to the vendors that, yes, we are willing to move forward, but...
Conditional approval, yes, subject to completing the contract, right?
Correct, because actually seeing an actual contract, a completed contract, would be great.
One thing I would like you to decide, do you want to give me that authority? I mean, I'm willing to take that because we've seen forms of the contract, and so far, I have to say, I haven't seen anything that I find objectionable. So if they submitted a final contract, two ways to do it. One, authorize me, which is in the order, to find that there's no material change, approved. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, if you want to see the actual final contracts yourselves and review them, require that it come back to you. Either way you want to do it, it's fine with it.
We're okay with a 3-week time. Or so for the next week.
You have a feeling that that's doable,
I'm sorry?
to have a contract with at least EPCO within. Believe that our conditional approval would be somewhat beneficial in helping to speed up things in the AG's office, okay?
Yes, because we don't have a Quartet. We haven't had any opportunity to evaluate the Quartet contract yet. Only KEPCO.
Doris, Rowena?
Once to get over this hurdle, when, the concern that I had was a statement that, Fred had made earlier, that depending upon this study, they could walk away if it's too expensive. Could you elaborate on what that meant and what's the probability of them walking away?
I believe it's said in the bid that they, first of all, the bidder has to provide the interconnection from the solar plant to the GPA system at their own expense. And there is a separate interconnection agreement along with the contract documents. But I believe that the bid also provided, this is kind of, I think, what happened with Hanwha before. They found that the interconnection agreement, part of it was too expensive. They couldn't do it within the original pricing, and they walked away. So I do understand it to be that they could still do that. The contractors could do that here if they think the interconnection is too.
So what's, John, what is the probability of them walking away from that? Say, right, of the pricing, but you say 6 cents or 8 cents per battery, and then 12 cents was for the actual solar.
That's my estimate, yeah.
Like 7 cents for the cost of the battery,
Right.
and then the difference is.
The solar PV plan and all.
But what is the probability of another Hanwha incident?
No, this is not another Hanwha. Hanwha had the opportunity to go and delayed it substantially and became an issue, no? The only reason why we went back after Hanwha is to try to comply with the consent decree as much as possible. So we replaced the transmission with battery. And that's not something we're going to do again for the record. No, that's the one-time consent decree we were forced to. They do have an opportunity to still walk away until they put down the system deposit, which KEPCO will put down in $20 million, and is proportional really to the first year's, what you call it, production cost, no? And so that's what the performance bond for that. So again, the interconnection, that's something we'll work out. It's really just the transmission or additionally anything there to try and increase any price. We know what those need to be done. The contract is everything. The key portions of the contract here is 17.899 for KEPCO, and again they will provide the 115, blah blah blah. They have a minimum energy they have to produce. The ramping has to be so and so, and it will be done by so and so. So that is the last provisions. But as far as what they're going to do, all the numbers and everything are here that will go into the contract. The same thing with Cortec 17.33. But yeah, until they do that, they can still walk away, and that's but there are already indications that they are, because they've been on the land, holding the property and buy it and all of that over the past, they did this since day one, 2 years ago. They have to get certainty from us that it is going to happen, no? And so that because they're buying, what's that, about 500 acres of land to put a project on is not cheap, no? You know that. So, yes. So an award subject to again getting the contracts for approval. And if you're saying I haven't had a chance to talk to them more about where we are, but getting back in 3 weeks to final the contract. If they don't final the contract by then, and that's when they're so.
Are we close, John?
Huh?
Are we close?
Yes, I think we're close. And
Fred,
if I
are we
prove it, well,
We haven't reviewed the 120.
most of it is boilerplate. Everything. Fred, you can whiff through that. Sorry.
Superhero Fred, once again.
So again, you can decide, Commissioner,
So
within 3 weeks.
the KEPCO contract specifically, they've already done a solar project with us. They've already got one done. Plus they're doing
KEPCO.
Ukadu also. And this is a 132 megawatt project with a 67 megawatt battery. And they're going to do 8 miles of KW 115 line too?
Yeah, about 8.5 miles of 115, all the way to PD.
Right. So of all the phase 4 bidders, this is the biggest and the most important one.
That's good. And I think that's the indication that they're the most sensitive, time sensitive, from my understanding today, So if we're gonna do it for 3 weeks, then I'd like to do both the two of them, get them both contracts resolved and bring you, and provide you all the materials for Cortec. Because basically, Mr. Chair, the analysis that were done for the pricing and all of that are I believe inclusive of the Cortec. My numbers are inclusive of the Cortec and all of that.
We don't have anything. GPA withdrew the Cortec from our review. They said do not review it. So I don't see how you can possibly address Cortec tonight. Not appropriate. What I interpreted that to mean was it's withdrawn until a contract is submitted. Since I haven't had a contract, I have not reviewed KEPCO at all, nor has the commission. I don't see how the commission action on a contract that's not before it, and that it hasn't.
If it were helpful, we can always call a special meeting if it's a very time-sensitive and important matter. Call a meeting on, we'll call a meeting on Christmas Day, maybe.
Or New Year's.
Only kidding. Election Day was enough already.
I think,
Yeah, just for Cortec.
Yeah. But John, it's going to be really difficult for us to include Cortec along with KEPCO right now, just the way things are standing.
Right.
okay,
I know you want to put it all together and get it done because it's all attractive. They're the two biggest bidders.
okay.
But the best we might get tonight out of the commission might be the conditional use,
That's fine.
or conditional approval. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Mr. Chair, I think, let's see, the next commission meeting, I believe, is going to be early December, right?
Yeah, through Thanksgiving, it falls with
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is our, falls on our meeting.
We'll have to move.
So,
Okay.
what could be done, we can place at least the KEPCO matter on the agenda for the, what day is it? Is it December 2nd or
Third.
for December
it's,
3rd? We can place the matter and hopefully you can get a final
It's exactly 4 weeks from
contract.
tonight.
And
December 3rd.
That's, our falls with Thanksgiving.
And well, I'm just speaking for myself, but I think if you had a contract that you and KEPCO agree with, you could worry about the later perhaps. But if there's an agreement between you and the contract's pretty final, that would be appropriate for.
And I thought we have that now. So we have the agreement of what the contract is with KEPCO now. So waiting another month doesn't do me any, I understand it. All right, we'll leave it at that.
You're okay with that, John?
But you have, so your existing order has on-top discussion going on, so.
Yeah,
The order
it's
as
conditional,
written- as
it's
written.
approval of the award,
Right.
conditional approval for GPA to continue to finalize the contract.
Right.
And then when they do, they file it with the PUC. If you go with my reviewing it, then it would become final if I don't find
Are
any
you stating,
material.
and you reviewing it is in the order?
Yes. But I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that.
Right.
I mean, I am, if you.
Go ahead, Doris. Do you think you,
To move it along.
do you, John, Mary Ann, do you believe that you could have the Cortec final contract ready for the December 3 meeting?
We're gonna push for that. So
Okay.
so if we can plan on trying to get the Cortec on the December meeting, we has the best, this reasonably could be expected today.
Right.
Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion?
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Next item. GPA docket number 2426, petition to approve GPA's revenue-funded capital improvement project ceiling cap for fiscal year 2025. We have a legal counsel report and a proposed order. Anthony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So basically, the contract review protocol for the Guam Power Authority requires GPA's annual level or cap of internally funded CIP projects be set by the PUC before November 15th of each fiscal year. So we are in fiscal year 2025. We are well before that deadline, so we're on time. And The request from GPA was really for like $39 million worth of CIPs, and that consisted of about 21 million of general plant and about 13 million of engineering projects. But they also included, for the second year in a row, about 4.2 million for line extensions. However, pursuant to the GPA's contract review protocol, regulatory review is not required for the line extensions. So I removed the 4.2 million request for the line extensions, just like we did last year. And the request is really for about $34,960,498,000. So reviewing their request, there are some very costly projects. So the general plant category includes the combustion inspection and hot parts for new for the Dedio combustion turbines 1 and 2. That's about 1.7 million. PD major overhaul at 3.5 million. Bucket trucks for 1 million. Electric bucket trucks for 724,998. Portable generators on trailers for about $800,000. And stationary generator replacements at 3.7 million. And in the engineering category, there's the storage tank 1934 refurbishment at 2.1 million. The EPCM contract for 1.2 million. The T7 transformer replacement at about $1 million. T501 transformer upgrade at 700K. And the T&D master plan at $5 million. Total, once again, for all the fiscal year 2025 CIPs, inclusive of the line extensions, $34 million. Now, to figure out whether or not this request was reasonable, okay, and in line with what's happened in the past, I went and I reviewed the approved cap levels for the last 10 years. I'm not going to go all over them, but there they are. I put them in my report. I went a little further beyond that, and so just by way for a apples to apples comparison, I estimated that this year's cap is about 2 million more than last year's cap. It's also notable that the cap has been increasing for 9 of the last 10 years, and I estimated that the average between year increase for that period, for those 9 years where it increased, was 5,036,689. Okay, here the 2 million or so increase from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025 is lower than that average by about 3 million. It's also important to note that for this period, GPA has never used all the money that it's requested for the cap, and a lot of the some of those monies basically that aren't used, they simply get transferred into the next fiscal year. That's the case for this year as well, but I didn't include that in my estimate. I was trying to do an apples to apples comparison, and essentially the this year's increase, 2 million, is below the average. So based on the fact that the fiscal 2025 year cap budget is consistent with that of prior fiscal years, and subject to GPA's ability to carry out the capital improvement projects using internally funded dollars, it's my recommendation that PUC approve the fiscal year 2025 $30,960,498 ceiling cap. Basically, the projects requested to be funded are needed for plant overhauls, improvements, equipment, and system upgrades. Such a cap is reasonable, prudent, and necessary, and in the best interest of the ratepayers. I submitted a proposed order approving the cap for consideration by the commissioners. Subject to your questions, thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Any comments, John?
We're starting to roll in our CIPs, Mr. Most of those have been the engineering projects, the time 1934. 35 is done, but now we're completing the other one. This is a 10-year certification. By the way, those tanks are nearly 50 years old too, but they're being recertified for the next 10 years.
Good.
And all the other stuff, the the transformer, the T&D building, all of that are in there.
Okay.
I noticed that you have the EV bucket trucks. You know, very ambitious. Good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, Guam Solid Waste has been trying to get their electric dump trucks.
I know.
I think it's like years of the waiting list. So.
And that's probably like what Attorney Camacho mentioned is, you know, you keep pushing the money into the following years because it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get it. So we want to go ahead and get started. We do have a electric PTO supposed to be coming in. We have a grant for that one. But our first real purchase of fully electric. A few years in production now. A few years in production now, so hopefully,
They'll get a few. How many are you requesting for or looking at?
I think there's 2 or
2?
3.
2, and then the third one is that of 2,000 back to come.
I wonder if you can use that as the same concept as that with electric school buses, kinds of recovery, or if you're down, bringing the school buses and plug it into a building, and then they use the battery off the bus to run the shelter. I wonder if those buckets can actually.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, just depending where they are there. But we should have power though.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, how's your $3 trillion request coming along for putting all the lines in the ground?
I think over the next year things will start moving somewhere. I mean, case in point, we're starting to talk about cybersecurity and potentially getting some funding for the replacement of our SCADA system. The end of life is coming up and we have to replace the central SCADA. Looks like we might get a grant for that.
A federal grant for that,
Yeah.
right?
So I think what's happening now is that the federal entities, all the different entities are starting to look at maybe their way to fund.
I remember though, there was quite some, maybe last year we were talking, or a year or so, about transmission lines in the ground. We're trying to get the military to pay for some of that. That ever just like, that's still in work in progress, or?
Still work in progress.
Work
Patience is a virtue.
Right.
I've told them I haven't seen a dollar yet, but I'm hopeful. And of course, we're only asking for 7 billion.
Yeah.
And if we get 2.3, well, that's enough for the next general manager to work on.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cal.
Anything else? Or a motion? Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and actually that's all customer, line extensions are all, basically customer hookups. So we budget that depending on what is the typical, requirement. That's all the new poles and all of that come out of inventory and charge for that. So it's just, and if we short, then we just have to transfer to take care of it.
Yeah, now we're just approving the cap, and of course, if they come back for the solicitation, if it's over 1.5 million, and also the contract, we would approve that. This is just the cap, their cap request, which we're required to do before November 15th to do. Yes, this exercise is one or more kind of an estimate for the next fiscal year of whether or not you might have to raise rates, or if there's, you know, a slate of projects that would result in a rate increase. Yeah, I would say, and then and just for the record, about 6 million or so in these have already been previously approved. These are the carryovers from last year. Okay, so when you approved the budget last year, that included 6 million in the general plant category and about 2 million in the engineering category. So those were previously approved, and then, and also for the record, EV bucket trucks are also carryovers from last year, indicating, you know, there is a waiting list for these high demand items.
And everything over $1.5 million we have to bring to yourselves. Yeah.
In many fiscal years, you don't go to the max carryovers quite.
That's great. And what we've been doing now, and actually, which is working much better, we have a 2-year budget now. So that, because the problem in the past is that by the time we get all the approvals, start rolling out, it's time to prepare the next year's budget. But the 2-year budget has been working for us. So now we have a 24-25. So the O&M budget is working similarly now to the CIP, because once you have a contract, it may extend over the fiscal year. So that's the first tranche there. That is whatever it is funded from the CIP for that. But the cat's all there is $1 million for GPA for the CCU and $1.5 million on the protocol. But I guess is the cap reasonable? The cap is not, we're not asking for a rate increase from that. It's really from cash generated from debt service coverages. And so what we don't use is in the reserve.
Okay, is there a second to that? Second. Your seconds, all in favor say aye. Aye. Next item. PA docket number 2501, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve the purchase of water system diesel generators. I believe this one was Joe Fett's, and this one is tabled for the time being too, right, Joe Fett?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. This is another one that's going to be, that's still under review.
This one is related to the previous docket we mentioned, 2424, which was medium-sized generators, and this particular one represents a larger generator.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any kind of timeline we should be looking at for these? What are we looking at for taking action on?
These bids, they're about a year, 450 days out for delivery, so we get those, the sooner this generators are available for.
Does it look like we could have this on the agenda for our December 3 meeting, both of these dockets?
Yeah, the first in this docket that was tabled, we would just require the submission of the contracts for us to review.
There's no contracts for these. These are just procurement. They're just purchase orders.
Okay.
They're They're just,
Then in that instance, we would just request a copy of the procurement file.
Okay. And next item is GPA docket number 2502, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve procurement of services to design and build infrastructure for and services to install, test, and commission PD substation T7 power transformer as part of a replacement project. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. In January 2021, GPA was required to remove the PD substation T7 power transformer from service after it experienced irreparable failure due to the deterioration of its mechanical parts and insulating components. In November 2021, GPA procured a replacement transformer for the PD substation and received parts, components, and drawings between December 2022 and February 2023. In addition to installing the replacement transformer, the scope of work will require the construction of a new transformer pad with a secondary containment structure and the appurtenances for the installation, as the existing pad was built in the 1950s and does not comply with current U.S. Environmental Protection Agency spill prevention, control, and countermeasures secondary containment requirements. The project further includes the design and construction of the transformer infrastructure to support the oil containment, the assembly and installation of the already acquired T7 transformer and its electrical connections to the existing substation equipment, and site acceptance testing and commissioning for the transformer. Now, the PD substation is what is referred to as a joint use facility. As I understand it, it's owned by the Navy. It's the property of the U.S. Navy, but it's used by both GPA and the U.S. Navy. And under the what's called the Utility Services Agreement, you remember there's kind of a long-term 10-year plus agreement between GPA and the Navy about the use of certain utilities. And in that agreement, this is one of the utilities that is to be transferred over to GPA. GPA pretty much runs it, I think, and utilizes it. The question I had asked GPA is, well, the cost here is about $2.8 million for the entire project. And it looks like GPA foots the entire bill. So I just wondered, well, it's Navy property and they get use and benefit. But apparently, since it's an item to be turned over in the Utility Services Agreement, GPA does pay the entire $2.8 million cost of this project. And that will be the estimated total cost is $2.8 million. This was approved by the CCU in their resolution GPA FY 2024-31. The CCU did determine that the PD substation T7 transformer serves critical distribution loads such as the Port Authority of Guam and as an emergency maintenance source for the Navy T-8 power transformer distribution load. So apparently, since the T7 is not functioning now, I think the Navy kind of assists through the use of the T-8 power transformer. I requested that GPA provide kind of a detailed description. What are the real benefits of this T7 transformer? There are a lot of them. PDT7 step-down transformer is essential. This is GPA's response to my question. The PDT7 step-down transformer is essential in that it is the power transformer for the GPA PD substation 13.8 kV bus, and feeders P3, P5, and P7. GPA 13.8 kV P3 feeder routes towards Capris Island and feeds the Port Authority. GPA 13.8 kV P5 feeder routes towards the Nimitz Hill area, where I live, so. The GPA fuel farm, GSA, and other GPA customers south of the PD substation. The GPA 13.8 the P7 feeder routes towards Anigua and feeds customers north of PD substation within the PD and Assen villages. And it is a backup for the Navy T8 transformer feeders. So there are a lot of uses. It seems to me to be a vital piece of equipment and does need to be fully implemented. So in this procurement, GPA is seeking the services of a contractor who will develop the design and project work plan, execute the construction, and perform the installation, testing, and commissioning tasks associated with the replacement of the PD substation T7 power transformer. I provided to you a cost breakdown in the ALJ report. This includes various aspects: design, construction, systems implementation, etc. I believe that's a fairly comprehensive cost breakdown. The design and execution of the contract does have to comply with certain requirements of the U.S. Navy's consent and approval terms. That involves soil testing, management, land use control documents, the National Historic Preservation Act requirements, and compliance with unexploded ordnance requirements. So those will have to be. All in all, I recommend that the PUC approve this request to procure the contractor services to design and build the necessary infrastructure for and services to install, test, and commission the PD substation T7 power transformer. It is necessary, reasonable, appropriate in these circumstances. GPA should be authorized to expend up to the amount of $2,818,440 for this project. I have prepared a proposed order that would approve the project and authorize the expenditure.
Thank you, Fred. I just want to take a moment to, I know we've been here a long time, we do have restrooms through those doors and over to the right. If anybody needs to take a restroom break, feel free to use the restrooms. John, any comments on this docket?
Just on the transformers, because of the distribution transformers, maybe owned GPA. What system let's say with the transformer, the GPA and all substation? But I guess that's a process that takes years. Especially those who are own. As far as the transformer, we hear that's our transformer. Definition is for us.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Go ahead, Doris.
Just one question more to Fred. On Exhibit C, where the 2.8 million is total, is itemization, it says allowed 20% offset for 563,000, making it 3.8. What is this 20% offset? Is that the contingency?
I believe so, but they don't appear to be asking for that.
This is an estimate based on some historical data. So, we won't know. So we're saying, well, we're going to go with 2.8, but really it's an estimate for now. And we will come back once because this is for procurement, to start the procurement, this is not award.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second? Rowena seconds. All in favor, say aye. The motion passes unanimously. Next item, GPA docket number 2503, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve award of contracts to supply ultra-low sulfur diesel to various power generating plant site locations. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Joe Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as this commission may be well aware, this is one of GPA's larger contracts. And I know that the commission has reviewed these contracts prior. And as the commission may also be aware, GPA maintains and operates several units that use this ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel oil number 2, which include GIGO CT and GIGO diesel for site location 1, Machechi CT and Dado CT for site location 2, Cabras 1, Cabras 2, and PD7 for site location 3, and Menengan diesel and Talfofo diesel plant for site location 4. And according to GPA, these fuel oil contracts are set to expire at the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2024. And in anticipation of the expiration of these contracts, GPA issued an invitation for multi-step bid for the bulk supply of this fuel oil. And 2 vendors submitted bids, namely Mobile Oil Guam and IP&E Holdings, and they submitted bids with respect to the 4 site locations that were mentioned. And upon GPA's review of the bids, with respect to site location number 1, Mobile submitted the lowest responsive bid, which offered a fixed service fee of 28 cents per gallon for the first year, 29 cents per gallon for the second year, and 30 cents per gallon for the third year. And with respect to site location number 2, IP&E submitted the lowest responsive bid, which offered fixed service fees of 30 cents per gallon for the first year, 30 cents per gallon for the second year, and again 30 cents per gallon for the third year. With respect to site location 3, IP&E submitted the lowest responsive bid, which offered fixed service fees of 25 cents per gallon for the first year, 25 cents per gallon for the second year, and 25 cents per gallon for the third year. And finally, with respect to site location 4, Mobile submitted the lowest responsive bid, which offered fixed service fees of 47 cents per gallon for the first year, 48 cents per gallon for the second year, and 50 cents per gallon for the third year. And we reviewed the 2 fuel oil contracts that were submitted to us, and both contracts were substantively identical. And as indicated in the proposed contracts, both contractors are required to provide GPA with this ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel number 2 oil. And they're also supposed to deliver this fuel to the power generating plants for the term of the contracts and in volumes required by GPA. The fuel oil supplied to GPA must also conform to the product quality requirements that's specified in Schedule A of the contracts, and they must also originate from reputable sources not sanctioned by the U.S. government. And again, the contractors here are fully responsible for arranging the transportation of this fuel oil to the GPA facilities. And in addition, Mr. Chair, there's a provision in these contracts that provide that where a contractor is unable to timely deliver any fuel oil supply, the contractor is required to provide GPA with at least 5 days notice. EPA pursuant to that provision in the contract then expressly reserves its right to procure the fuel oil elsewhere. And if the cost of such fuel oil exceeds the contract price, then the contractor is required to reimburse GPA the difference. There is also, I saw, a liquidated damages provision that allows liquidated damages whenever GPA suffers damage due to any delivery delay of the fuel oil, or where the quality of the fuel oil is outside the required specifications. And as indicated in the proposed contracts, the contract price is calculated by adding the reference fuel price plus the fixed service fee multiplied by the gallons of fuel supplied. And so, as defined under the contracts, the reference price is the quote mean average of the previous month's daily mid of plots price postings, which is the average of high and low price assessments reported in the Platts Asia Pacific Arab Gulf Market Scan FOB Singapore price assessment for gas oil. So as indicated in GPA's petition, the base term for these contracts will be 3 years, beginning on January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, with options to extend these contracts for 2 one-year-long years. And with its calculations, GPA has indicated that the total 3-year cost for the supply of this fuel oil under these contracts is about $170,495,460. And in support of its petition, the CCU at its meeting in September authorized GPA to enter into the contracts with Mobile and IP&E at the proposed fixed service fees that were offered in the bids. And so the CCU, of course, approved the total cost for the 3-year term of the contracts at $170 million plus. This commission has consistently found that, without a doubt, this fuel oil is essential to GPA's operations, since it is utilized at its various diesel-fired generators. And without this fuel, GPA will be unable to provide the necessary generation capacity, especially during times when certain baseload units are down. And so this commission has also responsibly determined that GPA requires this continuous supply of diesel fuel to maintain the authority's electric power generation capacity, and that the purchase and delivery of this fuel oil is reasonable, prudent, and necessary. These contracts ensure that GPA has a continuous supply of this fuel so that it can perform its electric power generation near capacity, and so therefore, Mr. Chairman, I found contracts reasonable, prudent, and necessary, and I recommended approval of these contracts with the 3-year terms at the estimated amount that GPA petitioned for.
Thank you, Josette. John? I think you told us in the previous meeting too, that both pipelines are finished now, up to Ukudu?
Yes, mainland,
Yep.
why there's a rule then where we ask the
Great.
And two bidders, and so they pretty much split them, right? It's like they split and took two sites, right? So I was wondering, is there any economies of scale if you were to put them all into one? And if you were to take the average of all the winning bids, and then look at their gallons usage in a year for all those sites, kind of got an average price of what that diesel fuel would be, and start the bidding from there, and just kind of like try to save money through economies of scale on a bid. The delivery cost.
Manenguin and Televo for the 48 cents versus the closer ones are much cheaper. So that's why I think our team started out like that and then they broke it down this way. And yeah, and that's why there's only two bidders. That's it's only Mobile and IP needed. Yeah, another one. Yep.
Let's say you have a contingency in there for if they can't find the fuel, they've got 5 days notice. Is that enough time for you guys to scramble and have the other bidder to be able to provide the fuel at that capacity? Would they be able to have that kind of backup storage?
We're on them even before the 5 days, because we're on them even before the 5 days, because I mean we've been through this just this past year. I think I'll let Jennifer talk how she handles it.
So GPA actually buys in bulk ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel, which we are actually delivering through pipeline to PD, MEC plants. If for any reason the suppliers that are serving these locations, which are remote, they cannot provide fill, we could provide the fill. We just need the tankers, the trucks to move it down. So this bid is really paying for we're paying the suppliers, not just the fuel, but that fuel is based on the MOPS pricing. So that's whatever is out there in the market. But the service fee is the one that's really paying for the delivery from their location to to these power plant sites.
Right, so in that contingency though, if they weren't able to do it, you had to pay somebody else to do it more expensively, you could bill them back.
So in the contract, there is language that Joseph mentioned, ALJ Contra mentioned, that, we have, because they're still responsible to deliver as part of the contract. If they fail to do it, then we have a way for us to recover, and not just recover the service, but recover any additional costs.
And John, again, when do you think, once Okudu comes on board, will you be needing as much? I know that's about a year and a half away.
Once Okudu comes on the line this year, 800,000 barrels less. Most of that consumption today is the combustion turbines and all that. The average system kilowatt hour for every gallon on the average today is about somewhere around 13 to 14 kilowatts per gallon. When Okudu comes on the line, for the same gallon of fuel, we're going to get about 20 kilowatt. So that's why your 800,000 barrels consumption less. So the oldest plants that are here will start going to reserves now. They're operating like base load intermediate today because we don't have the capacity. But once they do, then all these numbers, the 177 million, I think I estimate it will go down to about 5 to 10 million total. Because Okudu is going to generate the power that they are generating today.
John, with your, as capacity and growth is projected out, and now we can't retire the aging assets, you guys have like maintenance plans already in place to start repairing some of these guys ahead of time?
If we look today at the capacity we have about 320 megawatts today. And that's because we repaired what we have planned to retire, we had to repair to serve the load today. So that was our action plan over the past year. 5 out of the 6 generators in Tenjo are operating today. It used to be 2, no? Manenguan is operating. All the CTs are operating today. The only one that is giving us the problem is, of course, the Jigo Diesel, the smaller units that we're working on. But we have on 320 megawatts today, whereas before we had 214, 240, and that's where we were load shedding. But today we're in fairly good shape. Knock on wood, Jennifer. Yeah.
So a year from now, we'll be at 500? Year and a half, maybe?
Yep. Actually, September, you're at 198, and you take away 132. And not 132, you take away 980. 198, you take away 80, because that's what we derated cameras for now, right? So you have another 118 to the 320, so 320 is 338. Like, I'm sorry, 438. Yeah.
Okay.
No? So, and then when you start adding the batteries, right?
Right.
And that starts to, and then as the renewables take the load from the Okudu backs up, and then every new load comes in, Okudu starts to take it until you get to a point, more batteries, more batteries. It's a very, very nice
We're getting there.
picture.
Slowly but
We're almost
surely.
there.
Yep.
First step is getting the cornerstone done, which is Okudu. No?
Right.
Yeah.
Same contract we've been using for the last several executions of this.
Jennifer's very modest. She came from sport, which is where she was running before.
Sorry, did you say ChatGPT?
But we actually had to make some modifications to account for the inability to serve us, because when we were having difficulty in running our base loads, we were requiring a lot more tanker deliveries. So the alternate source of fuel was something we added that wasn't previously there, maybe 5-6 years.
Thank you, Mike. Second?
Second.
Peter seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, GPA. I probably should have provided some free toothbrushes on the way out.
We won't see you guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, yeah.
Take me, administration break? Let me go the rest of it.
That's only for you, sir.
You got administrative matters?
No.
Hey, yes. Yeah, Oh, that's all, he's off on this one. Oh, yeah. Oh, Calvin G, that's a whole new issue.
Just getting info. No, I take it back.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay, all right. Thank you, have something to. I don't wanna eat it.
Fiscal year 2024 financial review.
I'd like to explain why it's tabled.
Okay.
Well, I can review financial reports. I don't look at what's the word, the details behind it. And what happened was Sheila discovered, when she was going through that there was some old reconciliation. Remember a few years ago, we reconciled all the accounts receivable, accounts payable, the bank reconciliation. But apparently, the accounts payable really didn't get fully reconciled. Long story short, I believe in journal entries to write off all the years, but QuickBooks doesn't like journal entries. So when I asked for a review of the of the accounts payable, it gave me 40 pages of accounts payable dating back to 2001. And so we were looking for a quick and dirty way of making a journal entry to just write all of that off, but QuickBooks doesn't like journal entries. Yeah, because it had, either go back and do one by one, all 40 pages of vendors to get off the system, or find a way to reconcile. And this is where we entered, Marie did a solicitation, and EY is the one that we're going to go through once the chairman answers the independence questions, because EY now is, how shall I say, the main auditor for the government of Guam, and so they have their own protocol. So that requires a reconciliation, which a journal entry that I would do to write it off is not viable under QuickBooks, right, Lou? And so that's why we have to work with EY to figure out how to fix it, to erase it, and put it to bed finally, so that going forward, effective October 1, all this is behind us. So that was the time that we've been taking, and had about 3 or 4 days with the lady that I finally said, I don't know how to fix this. If they won't accept my journal entry, I don't know what to do. And that's when they went out to solicit someone, more technical in that particular area. So that's why it shows somehow or another $500,000 is owed, and which is not.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why we've been trying to figure out how to write it off, like the way we did it a few years ago.
It was going to show us income.
No, because there's
Because it's a payable.
yeah, well, I don't know for sure. Not particularly. Yeah. So that's why we don't have the September 30th financial. So as soon as we can get the chairman to sign off on that and then approve the procurement, Then the other thing we have to do is buy a more updated version.
Year, what year are you on?
Because we're in two,
2020? Oh, yeah, it's expired.
yeah, so it's expired, and so we need to buy a new new updated version.
Don't you just pay an annual fee for services? Sign up for like, for backups and for, any new updates? And payroll.
So the new one they have is online. I mean, it's automatic. I mean, the new version
Right,
they have
okay.
is online, but according to EY, they don't suggest it because we are not US.
They don't,
And it
yeah.
goes direct to
Right.
the
It's
IRS.
difficult, right.
Yeah.
It's difficult for our,
So they said just
stay on the desktop.
Yeah, yeah. And because of payroll's already being done by Sanford, so we don't have to worry about that. They take care of the quarterly payments and all the annual 941. So it's that reconciliation, that's what we want to,
Did you already move forward to upgrade?
not yet, we're waiting for.
I just got back, so I
So he-
haven't reviewed
He
it
has
yet.
to sign off.
For the upgrade.
Yeah.
Next item is Resolution 2501. This is a commendation for retiring Chairman of the CCU, Joseph T. Duenas, for his distinguished and exemplary service with the Guam Public Utilities Commission and the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. I don't know if all of you are aware, but Joey was on the commission in the PUC Commission, early days, and he was chairman for a long time.
It was on the PUC?
He was on the PUC for 9 years, 1985 to 1994, and he has served 16 years on the elected CCU, 2009, 2024, and he's retiring December of this year. And we're going to miss him. Joey's a great guy. He's been wonderful to work with over the years, and retiring. So
There's only
The 2 out of 5.
there were 5 running.
also enough one.
Peter Roy is running. He's the only incumbent running. Fred wrote up a very nice commendation.
Yes, thank you.
Good job, Fred. Resolution 2502, an employment agreement for administrative training, Marie Leon Guerrero. I'm very pleased with how Sheila and Maria have just gotten into the system here real quickly and done great work already. Welcome aboard, Marie. Welcome aboard again, Sheila. Just going to have to continue to impress us above and beyond.
This is way over the
Yeah, we haven't seen this yet.
but certainly appreciated.
Many of us used to go to the CCU meetings all the time just so we could eat.
Just so we can look at their buffet.
We always had a policy here of water only. That's right.
Well, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who drinks Diet Coke.
That's right.
And then we have,
I just wanted to say I've been working with the 2 ladies, and Lou has been staying in the background only as we're working together to close the fiscal year. So it's been a pleasure working with them.
Lou has composed a notice of retirement to us. And we're really going to miss you, Lou. I mean, you've really been such a valuable part of the PUC over the years. How many years have you been with us now?
22.
22.
You want to work part-time?
Now, are you still planning on staying with us through the calendar year?
Yes, I'll be,
Okay.
final will be 31st of December.
Okay, all right.
2 years, were you like 12?
That's my age.
And what are your plans in your retirement, Lou?
Well, I mean, I want to travel. I want to, spend time.
Do
with
it.
my
Do it.
Yeah, with my grandkids. Because I worked with the law firm for so long, 15 years in Brooks.
And they never let you take one vacation.
Straight into PUC, 22 years. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty lengthy. I'm not that old because I'm only 60
Mhm.
right now, but
That's just a young kid,
I'm
Lou.
still ready for
Yeah,
retirement. I'm ready to travel.
good.
Good.
My husband is opening his own business soon, so, we're looking at trying to help him out now. Yeah, he's still working though, but I'll be his business partner. So there are good things ahead of us.
Service, Lou.
Thank you.
We'll miss you.
You're more than welcome.
And Marie and Sheila and I can call you from time to time if we're stuck.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
second?
We have
Do we need to move?
we have to sign everything.
Oh, sorry.
Move to approve the Joey Williams resolution.
And
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
I knew
You can have this heavy binder, it's so heavy.
This is all yours.
Yes. Thank you. It's so heavy.
Hot boy strikes again.
I am so jet